Okay, Nick and Andy, big breaking news in the Premier League this week is that Kai Havertz has gone down with a hamstring injury on Arsenal's warm weather training trip in Dubai. And Nick, I mean, this is a huge, huge blow for Arsenal just after the transfer window ended and they couldn't bring in a striker. I mean, firstly, what's your thoughts on this? Secondly, who have they got left to actually play up front in one of those three forward positions?
Well, my first thought is this is a terribly uncomfortable time to be in management at Arsenal, because everyone didn't see this coming, but everyone knew there was an issue there. It's honestly been an issue for quite some time, if you think about it, going back to the days, probably going back to when they had both Lacazette and Aubameyang, right? I might be missing someone, so I apologize, but I just think it was completely unavoidable. And I know they didn't want to bring in Kim Kallstrom or something, like somebody who wasn't going to help them with a January move, but I really don't see anyone there unless they go to full, kind of Pep mode where you're playing your false nine and everybody's moving around. And I think they're capable of that, but just awful. And I think you're about to find out that Kai Havertz was much better than you remember, Arsenal fan.
It's right, Andy, isn't it? I mean, when you look at who they have left, I mean, Saka's on the way back, but still a little bit away from full fitness after that really serious hamstring injury. Martinelli's gone down. Gabriel Jesus is out for the rest of the season. I mean, the only three fit forwards they have, Ethan Nwaneri, who's a teenager, Raheem Sterling, who's, played sparingly this season on loan from Chelsea, and Leandro Trossard. So it's looking like maybe Trossard as a false nine, maybe Nwaneri on the right, Sterling on the left. But there's even some talk about, Kieran Tierney can play left wing. He's played there before. Maybe chuck him in from the cold because he's hardly played this season. So I guess they have some options, but to Nick's point, they're a very different team, right? They haven't got that kind of focal point like Havertz or Jesus up top. So this is concerning, considering they are also 7 points behind Liverpool in the title race and really need to chip away at that now and step on the accelerator.
Yeah, and let's remember, we're talking about a team that has struggled to score goals and create chances this season as it is before the injuries kind of hit this group. And this has been the Achilles heel of Arsenal. It's the reason they're probably not out of the title race, but probably not going to win the title this season, is they just had too many games where they couldn't find a goal when they needed it. I do think it will be Trossard. We've seen that the most, I guess, from Arteta. And so we have something to look back on. I think he's got 9 appearances, whether that starts or just sub appearances, or even in mid game being shifted up to the center forward spot and playing as that false nine. It'll obviously look a lot more fluid, and you're gonna hope that Martin Odegaard can push on from midfield and maybe contribute with the goals. Declan Rice with the set piece service from the corners. Once again, they're gonna have to generate chances. They're not going to be creating chances free-flowingly the way that you would expect Arsenal to be. It's going to have to be, how can they manufacture these scoring chances for the rest of the season just to keep within touching distance of Liverpool? Because, Nick's right. It was completely avoidable. We all looked at the situation. There were multiple clubs across the league, by the way, in January that we said, hey, you could probably use someone in that position to either strengthen your team or safeguard against injuries hitting. And Arsenal center forward was probably top 2, top 3 in the entire league.
And it's a gamble, wasn't it? It's basically like, we're going to gamble on Kai Havertz being fit for the rest of the season. It's not a bad gamble because he's been pretty healthy since he's turned up the last couple of seasons. He's one of the players that seems pretty durable and reliable. So they just got really unlucky, I think, with that gamble that right away it has not paid off, Nick. And we talked about it there. I think maybe the way that they get through this is to just go back to being ultra defensive like they have at most points this season, when they found that creativity difficult, when Saka and Odegaard's been out injured and they've had these injury issues, and relying on set pieces. I think that's the way. It's going to be pretty boring to watch Arsenal, I think, or more boring than it has been for most of the last few seasons. But that's the only way to me that they're going to stay in this title race or chip away at Liverpool's lead, is to get the set pieces, hit them on the counter if they can, and just defend really well and do the basics well. So I guess, are they still in the title race for you, Nick, given these injuries and this issue? Can they actually catch Liverpool? Because this one to Havertz, this seems to be a really, really monumental injury. All the others were big, but this is the last thing they really needed.
Well, I think there are lessons they can take from previous big clubs who have suffered injuries like this, and there are ways around it. I don't know. Is there a scenario once Saka gets back, a lot of things change? Because when you have Saka and Odegaard, you are queuing up chances for people. And remember, they played a decent amount of time without Odegaard, but they did have Saka. So we haven't really seen optimal Arsenal attack, and we won't for the rest of the season. I guess the thing I would say is Trossard or can Trossard or someone like him be the way Diogo Jota was when Liverpool were functioning with the false nine? Can somebody be a little bit of a poacher, a nuisance, an undersized menace? And it's possible. And I want to give Arteta credit for that, because I don't want this whole segment to sound like we're all over Arsenal. Good manager. And if he can figure out who can be that guy, and maybe it's heavy coming from the right with Saka and Odegaard, but yes, I do think it's a major hit, and especially because they have to beat Liverpool to get there, right? And who's scoring against Virgil van Dijk right now and Konate? Well, this week a couple people, but whatever.
Yeah, no, it's true. I think you're right there. Trossard, I think he plays better when he's got a bit more pressure on him, Andy. We saw earlier in the season, like he had that chip on his shoulder. I was at Aston Villa away where he came off the bench and scored with his first touch, and then was kind of angry when he was celebrating and said, I should be playing more and all the rest of it. So if there's one kind of character, just thinking about when Haaland was out for City over the years, the last few years, Pep's found a way, and it feels like Arteta could find a way with him and kind of just get through this until Saka comes back, end of February, start of March, and then they can go again.
Yeah, that still doesn't fix the center forward position, though. We're still talking about Trossard in that spot for the rest of the season, and that's no shade. That's just the reality of the situation going forward. It does get easier when you get Saka and Odegaard. You combine those two players who work just on another mental wavelength with one another. It will undoubtedly improve the team. But if we are talking about the title race, and not just being in the title race, but having a 7-point gap to close while going through that difficulty, I don't think there's any chance.
Yeah, I just want to add finally as well, like hindsight is obviously, very, very easy for us to say they should have signed a striker, but it's interesting to me that I respect the decision not to go out and spend a lot of money on a player that you didn't think would be a long-term fit. Like, I get that. But I do think when you think about them selling Eddie Nketiah to Crystal Palace and never actually replacing that person in your lineup, you should have gone out and bought a backup option and a guy who's like, I don't know, a Mateta or somebody like that you chuck, not saying they could get him, but you chuck 20, 25 million at an aging player who is a veteran somewhere. It's like, you are just going to play a role here in this team where you come off the bench, last 20 minutes if we need you. And I think that is the main oversight here, that Arsenal, when they built this squad, they are looking for superstars, but you still need those bit part players. Like they have Jorginho in midfield, and they have other players defensively like Tomiyasu and others who can slot in when needed. And they should have had that versatile and backup striker who was happy with that role for situations like this when it arose. And it's going to be interesting to see how they play it out the rest of the seasons. Head over to Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com for all the latest on this injury situation and to see if Arsenal can overcome it.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Lowe, and as we head towards the end of an exciting Premier League season, make sure you like and subscribe on the NBC Sports YouTube channel for more content like this.